They told you to be kind, to open up, to express your feelings. They told you that vulnerability would create closeness, that honesty would deepen intimacy. And so, you listened, you shared, you softened, you revealed more than you ever had before, your fears, your hopes, your wounds. But what they didn't tell you was at the very moment you did that, something inside her began to shift. Something inside her, the part that once burned for your presence, began to cool. Not because she is cruel, not because she wanted to hurt you, but because the mystery was gone. The wildness in you that once pulled her close had been tamed. The fire that once danced behind your eyes had turned into a candle politely flickering in the corner of her comfort zone. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." But somewhere along the way, you stopped making yourself. You started molding yourself for her. You shaped your identity like wet clay in her hands, slowly becoming the version of yourself that made her feel safe, seen, satisfied. And in the process, piece by piece, you disappeared. You didn't even notice it. It was subtle. It started with a few small compromises. You said yes when your gut whispered no. You softened your truths just to keep her calm. You adjusted your boundaries, convinced that love meant sacrifice. You thought this was noble. You thought it was love. But it wasn't love. It was bad faith, Sartre's most damning concept. It was a moment a man stops being the author of his life and instead becomes a character in someone else's story. You gave up your pen. You handed over the script and said, "Write me into your narrative." And you thought this would keep her. You thought she would love you more for it. But instead, she began to pull away. Slowly, quietly, without explanation. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded too well. You did everything right. And in doing so, you became wrong in the one way that matters most. You see, desire doesn't live in obedience. It doesn't bloom in comfort. It doesn't grow in the soil of predictability. Desire lives in freedom, in mystery, in the quiet tension between two sovereign beings who choose each other without needing each other. But you didn't know that. You thought consistency was a currency of love. You thought being dependable was a key. And so, you gave everything. You showed up. You stayed soft. You became her emotional home. But she didn't want a home. She wanted a mountain. A man she could orbit, not a man who revolved around her. And that's the tragedy. She once looked at you with awe, with fire, with reverence. But now? Now you are familiar. Now you are safe. Now you are known, and therefore forgotten. You became a mirror reflecting her needs, her moods, her expectations. But what she craved, whether she knew it or not, was a force, a presence, a man who simply is, not detached, not manipulative, but whole, rooted, unyielding in his truth, a Sartrean man, one who does not lie to himself for the sake of being loved, one who does not compromise his essence just to keep her smiling. This is not about being cold. This is not about pretending you don't care. This is about existential integrity, the rare and terrifying act of remaining yourself even when someone you love wants you to become someone else. And she feels it. She may not be able to explain it, but she feels it. She feels when your truth becomes negotiable. She senses when you stop standing in your center. And when that happens, her desire doesn't just fade, it recoils. Because true desire cannot survive captivity. It needs space. It needs resistance. It needs you to remain unmoved. She will test you. She will pull away. She will offer silence, chaos, confusion, just to see if you break. Not because she wants to destroy you, but because she wants to feel the edge of your presence. And if you break, if you chase, if you bend, she will know you have disappeared from yourself. You have abandoned your post. And she grieves, not for the relationship, but for the man you used to be. The one who met her with mystery in his eyes, with fire in his voice, with a truth so alive it made her question her own. You thought she wanted the man who shares everything. But she wanted the man who has something she can never fully know. The man who remains other. The man who does not need her to be complete. The man who breathes just as deeply in her absence as he does in her presence. Because that man cannot be owned. He cannot be reshaped. He cannot be seduced by comfort. And that man, he becomes unforgettable. Most men never get there. They fold under silence. They beg for answers. They mistake performance for love. They dilute themselves just to feel accepted. And in the end, they wonder why the fire died, why the laughter stopped, why her eyes no longer linger. But the man who remains rooted, who does not collapse, he becomes something different. He becomes a gravitational force. Not because of what he says, but because of what he doesn't need to say. You were not born to be chosen. You were born to choose. To choose your truth. To choose your path. To choose your integrity over intimacy. And here's a paradox you'll never admit aloud. The moment you no longer need her is a moment you feel safe to come closer. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't chase yourself away. This is not a return to her. This is a return to you. And if this realization stripped away a lie you've been living, if it reminded you of the man you once were or the man you're becoming, then carry it with you. Not as a tactic, not as a performance, but as a way of being. Because a Sartrean man doesn't seek love to complete him. He lets love orbit him. If it dares, and if it doesn't, he remains, untouched, free.